Welcome to the Weird Interview Show. I'm a weird alien. Today I'm interviewing an improviser, Jeff Clark, also known as Gary Starlight. Why did you want to be an improviser?
I wanted to be an improviser ever since I found out what it was. Basically, I was the weird kid in primary school and intermediate and high school, just like you're the weird alien in your planet, I'm sure. And there was this thing called theatre sports, which was just a great way for weird people to enjoy and celebrate their weirdness, be creative, make up stuff, be funny, and all of those things. So it kind of just hooked me from a really early age, and I thought it was amazing. And so I started theatre sports and then got into improv and performing and all that other stuff. And from there, I was lucky enough to get a job doing it, which was amazing.
How did you develop the skill of improvisation? Was it just practice, practice, practice?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much practice. Like you can be born with a certain level of talent or natural ability, but if you don't actually develop those skills, you're rapidly going to get overtaken by someone who does put in the work and everything like that. So, yeah, I was lucky that the teacher who was in charge of the theatre sports team at high school was obsessed with it. So we were constantly doing extra workshops and extra practice. We got told about books we could read or other things we could do. So I just kept doing all of this stuff. And then once I started doing it professionally, that opened up a whole heap more opportunities in terms of getting professional workshops. I got to study with Keith Johnston, who literally invented invented theatre sports. So just practicing and working with great people and just learning as much as you can over the years.
How and when did you decide you were ready for solo shows?
I never felt ready when I decided to try a solo show, but I thought I'm going to give it a go. From improv is very much a collaborative medium, and so you are totally working with other people. And for a while in Christchurch, there wasn't really a stand-up scene. Like most of the time, if you wanted to make it in stand-up, you had to leave Christchurch and go somewhere like Auckland or a wee bit later, Wellington as well, started getting a fledgling scene. And for those few years, it was all just improv, improv, improv. Then they started having more stand-up gigs coming along and they started getting a little more regular. And I tried out doing solo stand-up and found it was a really different set of skills. It is a really different performance sort of medium. So I did a few stand-up sets and then I was lucky in that we did a show where everyone had a bit that they did. Like in improv, you sometimes have a solo scene that you do by yourself, and those had gone reasonably well for me. And I'd done sort of an extended solo bit in one of the shows that we did. And the character I created, Gary Starlight, the artistic director of the Court Theatre, who programmed the show that the Court Jesters did, which was called The Reception, said, "Hey, that character that you did, the wedding singer guy, I think there's something in that." And that was sort of how Gary Starlight got his own solo show. But even then, it's not a solo show because I'm working with a very talented musician. I've worked with some great musicians who do sort of the music for that.
What would you say have been the biggest challenges in your career?
There have been a number of challenges in my career. Making headway, improv, you can sort of get really you can get sort of misled or go the wrong direction with improv. The audience will reward outrageous behavior, not necessarily good performance skills. So you always have to keep a sort of eye on that. There were challenges like in the late 1990s, the troupe of jesters at the time, the Court Theatre got a new artistic director who didn't know or like improv, and they felt really alienated. And so in the early 2000s, they decided to leave the Court Theatre, form their own troupe, and then there was a decision the to reboot the Court Jesters with a whole bunch of new people. And I had to decide if I was going to go with these people that I've worked with or stay or go with the new people that came in. And the majority of the new people who were coming in were all people that I had worked with through the University of Canterbury Comedy Club or Drama Society or Musical Society. And they were my people. I got along a lot more with them. There wasn't that same level of hero worship as there had been for the original Jesters. And so it felt like it was more of an even playing surface for me to start on. So that was a really big challenge deciding what to do. But once I decided to do that, I didn't regret it at all because that opened up a huge amount of amazing doors for me and things like that. The other challenge has been when I've gone out of Christchurch and done shows over there, places like Nelson Fringe or Dunedin Fringe or Auckland, Wellington, things like that, because it's really easy to become a big fish in a small pond, or to not realize that it is actually really, really hard to make headway in performing. And so there have been challenges where I've done shows and they haven't got the audiences that I wanted or expected, and just managing the ego for that. But it does help you keep yourself in check. Yeah, those have been probably the biggest challenges that I've had in my career. Obviously, maintaining enthusiasm and joy for it has never been hard because I love it. Even with a bad gig, you can sort of take something away from it. So, yeah, it's been really fun.
For the court jesters, do you do any preparation for those gigs?
Preparation, not in the way of scripting. We don't script any of the stuff that we do, although we have go-to bits that we do with like audience warm-ups and the way we introduce some shows or scenes and things like that. We do workshops together, which is not a rehearsal, but it's just a way for us to practice our skills and to practice working with each other, just to get to know what's this person's jam, what do they like, what sort of content do they like, what sort of characters can they do, what can we learn from each other, so that we can work better together. It's kind of like a football team. Like a football team never rehearses the game that they're going to play. They just practice on the set of skills so that when the ball goes out on the field or the show starts, they know that there's a bunch of people who will always have their back and have their eye on the ball. So we do workshops together every week, but we don't rehearse. Sometimes we'll prep if it's a themed show in terms of, hey, we're going to do a Game of Thrones themed scene, or we're going to do a Married at First Sight themed show. So maybe watch a few episodes of that or find out some of the shorthand for that. But yeah, just developing our skills and making sure that we're able to collaborate well together.
Is it easy to get people to those shows?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You can sort of hope that a concept or a show will hook people in, but it's always what else is on, what time is the show, what's the weather like, are exams on, there are all these different things, and it's an increasingly sort of competitive world. We've got all these different things wanting people's money and wanting people's attention, that when people do come along, it's great, it's awesome when people come along to the shows. So we have the court theatre resources behind us. So there's a marketing department that develops ads, and we have sort of the resources to get radio and TV and, well, not TV, but radio and billboards and occasionally TV if we're really, really lucky. But yeah, but when you're a solo performer, like doing my Gary Starlight shows, then that's kind of a lot harder because you're not coming from that position of privilege and already known sort of stuff. So you do need to hustle a wee bit more.
How do you promote your stage persona, Gary Starlight?
Well, Gary Starlight has his own Facebook page, and he occasionally takes over my performer page. Um, I'm lucky in that I've done a lot of shows at Good Times Comedy Club now, so Good Times will promote Gary when he's doing a show there. And then I've built up a lot of reviews, quotes, and photos, and clips, and video, and things like that. So people who really don't know what it is, I can send them a picture or a video of what it is, and they sort of go, "Oh, okay, that's what it is. It's not a real singer. It's a weird improv show that's ridiculously funny." That's sort of how I do it there.
How did you come up with that name?
The name Gary Starlight. Well, we were looking for a really cheesy, like at the time, a wedding singer sort of thing, and so I think, I mean, it's kind of a pun on Gary Glitter without the problematic stage persona or behind the scenes persona. So it was kind of a gag on that. It was kind of like Gary is, other than Gary Glitter, there aren't that many celebrity performers called Gary. And Starlight was just kind of like, yeah, sparkly. I like the reference to Starlight Express, which is a musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, because it's that sort of glitz and glamour and completely impractical. Starlight Express is a musical about trains, so it's performed by people on roller skates on a roller rink, which just seems like a ridiculous act of over the top hubris. And I thought that's the name that fits. So Gary Starlight sort of came from that.
What are some things about improvisation that would surprise people?
That it's both easier and harder than you think. One of the first things that we teach people when we're teaching people improv is that coming up with material is something that we do every day. Like as humans, we have no idea what's going to happen next, but we hope and trust that we've built up enough skills through our life to know how to respond and react to it. And it's the same thing on stage, that once you take the anxiety, if you can remove like most of it is removing the anxiety, the fear. If you can go on stage and not worry about saying the right thing or doing the right thing and just listening and reacting to the thing that the other person gives you, and also not having to do it as yourself but as a character, and sort of be liberated to what would this character do, how would this character react, it becomes a lot easier to do it that way. And then at the same time, it's also really, really hard because you have to also give up your self control in terms of the scene doesn't have to end well for your character. You can deliberately make the bad choice or the worst choice because it'll be more dramatically interesting. So you kind of have to be on stage being the actor, the writer, the director, the co-star at the same time. So it's kind of like juggling. When you're starting out, it's really, really hard. And the more you freak out about it, the harder it's going to be. But when you just start using one skill and then you start using two skills and then you get all three skills going, then you can almost sort of take your mind out of it and just let it happen. And it's kind of that weird sort of Zen philosophy thing. So yeah, that's one of the easy and difficult things about it.
Do you have a preference between doing improv yourself versus with other people, and why?
I love doing improv with other people. And it doesn't matter if they have 1 year of experience or 1 week of experience or 10, 20 years of experience. It is super fun to perform with other people who know the rules of improv. I have performed with people who are not improvisers. We've had guest stars many, many years ago, or audience volunteers at a corporate gig who are not improvisers and don't have that same generosity of spirit, wanting to make themselves look good, and ego gets in the way. But anyone who has even a basic understanding of the laws of improv is going to be super fun to perform with. Doing improv by myself, again, it's not myself. It's just me and either the musician or the audience member that I'm interacting with, or audience members I'm interacting with. And so that is a very different experience, which is really, really fun and really enjoyable. But I think as someone who loves stories and building on ideas rather than having to come up with all the ideas, I'd say I definitely prefer performing with other people, and finding ways to do that with as many people as possible is sort of one of the joys and the highlights of what I get to do.
Who are your favorite improvisers?
I mean, when I started out, all of the original court jesters, so Greg Cooper, Craig Cooper, the late Cal Wilson, Simon Peacock, um, Ross Gumbley, all of those initial jesters, Andy Spargo, Rick Cosgrove, Jared Corbin, um, Serena Butt, Susan Ferguson, all of those people in Christchurch were amazing. Carl Nixon, who's gone on to become an amazing playwright. And then, of course, the people from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Um, Seeing those people on TV was really, really inspirational. So Colin Mockery, Ryan Stiles, um, uh, Josie Lawrence, sort of all those classic ones. More recently, things like Middleditch and Schwartz, or that improv guy on Instagram, um, and all of the jesters that I've got to work with, like my contemporaries, my peers, Daniel Allen, Brendan Bennett, Kathleen Burns, Dan Bain, all of these amazing local improvisers. Yeah, again, I could sort of keep going on and on and on because every improviser has something to bring because they're all individuals. They all have their own voice. They all have something they bring. Um, there are some really fun improvisers to perform with, and there are some really exciting improvisers to perform with because you don't know what's going to happen, and there are some improvisers you feel really safe with because you do know what you're going to get. And so, yeah, there'd be too many for me to go through a complete list, and I've probably already said too many names and left too many people out.
What have been your favorite places to travel?
A few highlights. I loved traveling to Sydney for the World Theatre Sports Championships. That was a real treat, and it was the first sort of major international improv thing that I've done. Um, I have done improv um, all over New Zealand, so any place I've gone. I did a show on the West Coast, which was super fun. It was in Hokitika, which was great. I did Gary Starlight on Nelson at the Nelson Fringe in 2016 and won Best in Fringe, and that was just super wonderful and fun to do. Dunedin, I went to the Dunedin Fringe. I didn't do very well in terms of audiences, but I had a fun time doing the show for the people that were there. Um, I guess it wasn't exactly an improv gig, but it was a corporate gig. We got to go to Queenstown for a for a Lord of the Rings themed event, and I got to dress up as Gollum and caper about on a mountaintop that I was taken to on a helicopter. That was pretty amazing. So yeah, I've got to do a whole bunch of really cool gigs around New Zealand, which has been really, really fun.
What do you like about performing in festivals, and is there anything you dislike?
When a festival is well run, it's super fun because they take care of you, they handle the promotion, they handle all the ticket sales, things like that. Doing the Nelson Fringe was super fun because I basically went up, I did a few PR, public relations stuff that had already been set up for me, and did my own stuff as well. And that meant that the shows were really successful and it was really fun. Same thing with Buskers Festival that I did twice. They handled all the promotion. I did my media appearances. It was really nice and easy. Some festivals, because they're not as well resourced or for whatever reason, it's a lot harder because you have to promote yourself and you have to do all of the promotion for yourself and all the hard work there. And so that can be really, really exhausting. You have to go there willing to do a lot of work. And for a lot of people, that is the more common festival experience is that you are going to have to, you're not going to have to try, you can't trust that people are just going to show up to your show. You're still going to have to work hard and promote it and do all of that marketing and public relations and stuff like that. And for some people, that's really, really hard. I have a bit of a background in marketing. I used to do marketing for the Court Theatre for a few years. So I have that set of skills, but it is really hard to promote a show when you don't have those resources behind you. And so that would be the main thing. Just check when you find out about the festival, how do they treat their acts? How much support do they give? Do they have contacts that they can give you, or do you have to do it all on your own back? That would be my advice if anyone asked me about it.
Is there anything professionally that you would still like to do?
Yes, I'd love to take Gary to proper comedy festivals. I've mostly done fringe festivals, but something like the Melbourne Comedy Festival or the New Zealand Comedy Festival, actually doing my full length show there would be fantastic. And so, yeah, I'm actually moving towards that now, which is pretty cool. I have a couple of other weird ideas I want to do, something with like a puppet themed show. Um, Maybe a improvised musical show, not just Gary Starlight, but an ensemble cast telling a whole story. That's always something I've wanted to do more of because I've done a couple of them as like special shows at Scriptless, but a whole season of it would be amazing. And just, yeah, just those sort of things. But more playwriting, writing scripts because it's sometimes a shame that you use all that creativity in one night and only people only get to see it once. So developing up the writing side of things, especially since, I'm getting into my mid 40s and I'm not always going to be able to jump up on stage with as much energy and enthusiasm as I've always had. So finding those other transferable skills would be a great thing as well.
Where can people follow you?
Well, you can follow me on Facebook. There is the Jeff Clark hyphen performer page. on Facebook, and also Gary Starlight Sings on Facebook as well. Though I don't have a website. Those are the main things. I do Scared Scriptless very regularly at the Court Theatre, so follow Scared Scriptless on Facebook or Instagram as well. And yeah, those are sort of the main ways people can find out what I'm up to.
I would like to thank Jeff Clark for the interview. People watching can like, comment, share, subscribe and whatever else people do to videos if you're watching in the future.